Ready again. We're getting our technology open and going. We're going to start our owls in our formal meeting. I do want to say though, as we do begin, we're going to be handing around a sign-in sheet.
Okay.
So please make sure you sign up and continue to talk. And then just momentarily, you'll see us go on the record. So those that are watching that are not here and as well as the recording can view it later as well. So bear with us just momentarily and then we'll be live for bargaining.
And make sure your phones are silent.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, especially if you're at the table, the owls are very sensitive. So if your phone goes off, it will immediately go to you because it thinks you're trying to stop. So
All right.
just to make you guys aware. Right. All right. All right, so we are here, PEA and district bargaining session 2. Today is August 1st, 24. And I'll actually pivot over to Brian's team because I believe they're going to start with a few things and then we'll kind of volley back and forth.
Yes, to assist us in our agenda and reflecting on what we had presented when we were together at our last bargaining session. I want to lead today first that we presented a teacher appendix B regarding advanced degree for review regarding hourly rate of pay. I'm on the record pulling that back so that it is no longer on the table for consideration as we already have language regarding advanced degree codified. So we're just pulling that back. There is a second language that was presented in our last bargaining that I will also likewise be pulling back. That will be Article 6.2, I believe it was, regarding Region Tech and Travis Tech regarding the college workday. There are multiple moving parts relative to the scheduling components of that program that I think we just need more time to review that and to work maybe by target or focus group behind the scenes. So I would like to pull that as well at this time. So those two articles would be off the table.
Okay.
And so we can move forward with the other items that we have for negotiation between us at this
Okay.
time.
So we could do what we had discussed. We could kind of walk and forth. Do you want to start with teacher 15?
Yes.
The evaluation?
Yes.
So on the last meeting that we had, the TAC, which is the Teacher Evaluation Advisory Committee, meets every year, at least twice a year to review Article 15 and evaluation to see if any tweaks need to be made to the actual article itself, or if there's anything that needs to change with EPCs, SAOs, etc. And so this last year, PEA had brought a concern to TAC to talk through about appeals, particularly with SAOs, with schedule changes after the deadlines had passed for semester 2, and being rated effective when, you know, things had changed to no fault of staff's own, and some other procedural violations. And so when that was presented at the table as a joint recommendation, not as a PEA proposal, but the joint recommendation from TAC, there was discussion and wasn't clear enough, something like that. So our team had worked on some language to bring back to you guys to look at. And so what I did, or what we did, and I'll pass this out to you guys. I think it's on page 7, if you want to go straight to 7. Because the other two things were just clean up the first page, and so we cleaned that up. And so while you guys are passing that out, just to remind you, on page 3 of 13, again, you'll see the cleanup. We don't have a 15-17 anymore, and so we needed to cite 15-15. On page 6 of 13, there was cleanup. Not last school year, but the school year before, we convened a small focus group with the Polk virtual teachers to look at and create their EPCs. And so in 15-9, The Polk Virtual School needs to be stricken through because they have their own EPCs now. And so the meat of what we wanted to bring back to you guys has been 1510. And our team feels that it gets the clarity that the TIAC committee was trying to get at with the issue. And so I'll go through that, whereas in 1510, the last sentence we struck through because we moved it to the subsection, because as we were changing things around, we felt that it fit better there. So that's not striking it from the article, it's just moving it. And I made that note in red. And so in 1510.1, towards the end, and the additions are underlined and bolded. I'll start kind of in the middle. It would read, an instructional employee may appeal any of the individual ratings governed by an EPC rubric domain, that's existing language. The addition starts and or their final SAO rating. Such appeal shall be based upon a procedural violation of the process, new language, a change in position, teaching assignment after the second semester SAO deadline is closed, and or a misinterpretation or disagreement, disagreements added of a system rubric. And then the addition, we moved the part from 1510 down to the subsection. If a serious procedural violation, addition, and or a change in the position, teaching assignment after the second semester SAO deadline has closed results in the removal of an annual evaluation, the evaluation rating addition for the employee's final SAO rating and or their final EPC rating will default strike through not evaluated, add either effective or their last valid evaluation rating for the impacted section or sections, whichever is higher. And then we cross through and the employee will be considered to have an overall effective rating for the purpose of all human capital, because the language that we're proposing to add above would take care of that part. And we feel that helped clarify better procedurally what the TIAC committee was trying to get at, based on the feedback from Mr. Hyde and your team last time.
I think I had a couple questions on it.
Yeah.
So, I know you and I spoke, but did we ever figure out how many people this impacted last year?
It's not a huge amount. I don't have a solid number for that because we talked about it yesterday and I wasn't able to get a solid number for that. It's not a lot, but we know that the people it had impacted, it's greatly impacted them. And so we think that by providing this clarity, it'll help us on both sides when we're doing evaluation appeals at the end to make things clearer on how we move forward if there are procedural errors, either in observations or just timelines and deadlines with the SAO system. Because we know that sometimes schedule changes are out of even a principal's control if they have to move staff around, or position changes with promotions or stuff like that happens with movement.
What is this? What is the second semester SAO?
Hold on, sorry.
I would have to,
What month is that occurring? Joe, do you know?
it would be probably January.
Joe,
Uh,
sorry, Ben,
The
when's the
SAO
second
deadline,
semester
second
SAO deadline?
It is the beginning of February.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
So it's
end of
early.
January,
Yeah,
beginning of
It's the
February.
beginning of February. Generally. End of January,
Yeah,
beginning of
January,
February,
February,
depending on when we
so
come
it's-
back.
So if someone's moved in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Help me get there with why we would default to their prior evaluation and not just give them an effective rating, because at that point, they have enough data.
Well, but the problem is in Journey, if their position changes or their class changes. So like what we had discussed, like, let's say I'm an algebra teacher and I picked my third period. And let's say that they needed to move me to geometry for whatever reason, and then that class gets scrapped. And then the deadline's already passed for me to submit a second semester.
So that part I failed, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I should have clarified.
So that actually happens more
But
mid.
if you got.
third
moved
quarter.
during the fourth quarter,
Mhm.
why would we default back to their prior year evaluation and not just go with an effective?
Because Journey scraps their stuff and you can't see it anymore.
But the language says they can either receive an effective or the last valid effective rating. Why would we go back and look at almost a full year prior versus just giving them the effective rating?
Because if they were going to be highly effective and Journey won't let you put it in anymore, or they've historically been effective and you can, or highly effective and you can see it because of the schedule change or the position change, the way Journey is programmed, it scraps it. The principal can't even go in and put in a rating, even if they saw all their data, in order to, what we're seeing and what we're hearing is that people are being rated effective when they should be or have historically seen a pattern of highly effective, and then they're being dinged because of things out of their control. And so that's why we wanted to default to the previous year or their last valid evaluation, because this is no fault of their own. It shouldn't happen every year. And if it does, that's probably a very individualized situation that we would probably need to look at individually.
How does this then apply? And that makes sense. But how then does this apply if someone's being moved because they're not being effective?
Well, then their EPC should reflect that,
Okay.
right? So their
So EPC and all that's been addressed.
Yeah.
And this language falls
Yeah.
aside because we have another mechanism.
Yeah.
to address that.
and if,
That's my primary
yeah,
concern is that
Yeah.
someone gets moved because the data trajectory shows that they're not being effective. And we move them to an unassessed grade level or some other content area. I don't want to send a mixed message, gives me a highly effective rating when they make them.
and I think it's important to, and this is why we thought the language clarified it a little bit more, because it really has two paths, right? Because our evaluation technically has three pieces. You have your self eval, which you either do it or you don't. You have your data piece, which is your VAM or your SAO. And then you have your EPC walkthroughs,
Okay.
right? And so this, I think actually, we think this clarifies this, because if you have an issue with your SAO, and it's a procedural thing, right? Because this isn't somebody that didn't do anything with their SAO, let it lapse, that we're not talking about that. We're talking about a schedule change that was outside of their control. In Journey, we can't stop the programming of that. And so this is for the SAO lane would be for that. And it's almost like a procedural thing. The EPCs, we had certain instances this year where people didn't get any walkthroughs. And then at the end, a principal tried to do needs improvement or unsat EPCs. And so that's a procedural violation, which would then default. But if somebody is needing to be moved because of other concerns that are then documented through their EPCs, that wouldn't apply to that. We're talking about procedural violations or like SAO deadlines that would be the default.
And can I say, I think to your point, a third of the evaluation is that SAO. So if they have historically done a very good job on their SAO and they do have highly effective, that would, yes, it would bump them up to highly effective for that third. But then if they're really doing a crappy job, that's 60% of EPC rating should be bring it down. What we're saying is the opposite, where somebody has been highly effective in their EPCs, but that effective on the SAO is just not.
No, I get it. I want to make sure that we're communicating this then, that what the expectation is. If that's the reason someone's being moved, we talked about gotchas before, so.
Yeah. But then that would be reflected
That
in their
also addressed my
EPCs.
concern that I raised last.
Yes.
Which is, I don't want movement because we're trying to move someone stronger into a position to benefit kids to ultimately default and protect someone. It's protect someone's evaluation, given the inflated evaluation, they haven't earned it.
Yeah.
So that works for me.
Okay.
But I don't speak for the team.
So I have just a few questions, and then I probably would like to just take this back.
Okay.
And we'll bring it, we'll review it further and bring back feedback to you, but I want to clarify or ask some questions. In the language, specifically where it says or disagreement of a systemic rubric, I want to qualify of a systemic rubric. I'm assuming, that's why I'm clarifying, we're speaking with specificity of an SAO rubric. That's
The EPC or the EPC rubrics, the
the
system.
EPC is set as a system piece inside the journey, so that's already done.
But if they're
And-
appealing it, just like, when we deal with appeals, let's say I disagreed with an EPC that was marked.
Well, then it's a standard appeal based
Yeah.
on that standard rubric
Yes.
that we're not going to change.
No, yeah,
That's what I'm trying to
yes,
clarify.
no, you're correct.
Because there's the rubric of how we're going to measure the goals inside the SAO, and then
Yeah.
there's the EPCs.
Yeah.
You're not saying, I disagree with the standard rubric for the EPC.
No,
Okay.
there's a disagreement with the rating.
And that's why I'm asking that,
Yeah.
because I thought it was
Yeah.
written to be an SAO rubric, disagreement.
This would attribute to both.
And my next piece was the disagreement piece, with respect that is this where I'm the principal and I'm meeting with you and you've written your rubric where we're going to measure your effective, highly effective goals based on your students, whatever that is. And you may say it should be a certain percentage or threshold, and I say, no, it really needs to be this. It's a disagreement. I'm concerned about the accountability or the rigor if there's just a carte blanche disagreement.
So this isn't talking to throughout the year, like, this is strictly about the appeals process.
Okay.
Right, in 1510-1, it's talking appeals process.
All right.
And so it's not necessarily, because there's already,
So it would have already been done.
yeah, there's already mechanisms in place
Upstream.
that if I disagree with what my principal is saying, like in October, it would then elevate to Ms. Collins or Dr. Henry, and then they would figure that out then. We're talking about at the end, when I'm sitting down with you and we're talking about either my SAO or my EPC final ratings, and we're having a disagreement. I'm saying, well, no, I think that I should be highly effective XYZ. And you say, no, I think you should be effective because of XYZ. Here's your targets, or here's your EPCs. We're specifically talking about the appeal process and what that looks like if there's a gross procedural error with evaluations as far as timelines and minimum walkthroughs, or a disagreement in the SAO rating, et cetera.
And another piece I want to go back and talk to our team about specifically is not a value with the new language added of either effective or their last valid, because to me that has an impact where we reside on pay for performance or otherwise, because not evaluated is a lot different than an automatic evaluation that puts you in contention for pay for performance. So I want to have time to discuss that as well.
And to that point, what we were trying to get at too, because while in the race to get to 47.5 and the funding mechanisms, leading up to that, we really haven't done performance pay because the way the legislation's been written. When we go back to being able to do performance pay, what we don't want is somebody to be rated overall effective through no fault of their own. And so for performance pay, they wouldn't be rated non-evaluative, automatic effective. This would take care of if it was a procedural error or a missed deadline with SAOs, that would then impact their overall rating for either highly effective, et cetera, for pay for performance once we get there.
Okay. Well, I think on my side, I've received the feedback clarification. We'll take this back and come back to you.
Okay. So then do you guys want to move to the Article 6 for teachers and the Article 8 for paras, and then the ESP, I think it's 12 for the lunch? Do we want to move there?
Actually, if I may be direct. if
Okay.
We stay in order with the ESP Article 12.13 with respect to the language of consecutive.
So that's then ESP 12.
That's correct, 12.13.
And then that's that's teacher 21. That's para 7.
I'm only speaking specifically to 12.13.
Wait, hold on. Okay. Then that's not the unpaid leave, because that would be ESP 11. So hold on, let me get to 12.
That was your proposal to us last time regarding
That was the
consecutive lunch, the consecutive lunch, time.
So then that's kind of
duty for
all
lunch.
3
But
contracts.
It is
then.
not. I'm
Okay.
specifically wanting to discuss and address the
Okay.
language for the
For the ESP.
ESP.
Okay.
And let me propose, push this over to you so we can review it together. Because this was the language you presented me last time, us, management, was with specificity 12.13 was the 30-minute.
Gotcha.
We had several 30-minute lunch discussions out there, but they're all with their specific articles by contract.
Yes.
And so if I may, we're gonna talk about the 30-minute lunch for teachers and for paras, but I'm looking at the language you proposed for 12.13,
Okay.
and it's on page 4 and 5. And this was your language proposed last time relative to the consecutive 60-minute unpaid, the consecutive 30-minute unpaid, and the consecutive 60. Do you see where I'm at?
I separated. I thought these were copies. Hold on.
Yeah, no, they're
Let
all,
me put it back.
it's the whole thing.
Okay. I was like, where? I don't see it.
Right.
Sorry.
Because the consecutive wasn't in the other proposals, so,
Well,
and
they were all consecutive 30-minute or consecutive.
that's why I think we need to peel these out, article
Okay.
by article, if I may.
Well, let me
You're
put
right.
this back in order then.
So the discussion, as I recollect from the table last night with respect to 12.13 was ESPs being interrupted during their lunch.
Yes.
So they take 12 minutes here and 18 minutes there,
Okay.
and we want them to have 30 minutes continuous.
Okay, I gotcha.
That was the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Separate and apart from what we're going to talk about in a few minutes with Article 6.2 of teachers and parents
Okay.
and otherwise. This was a discussion about the word consecutive.
Okay.
And what I'm bringing to you is we agree with your language of
Perfect.
consecutive, that an ESP should have 30 minutes lunch, not 12 and 18 in between. 30
Okay.
minutes is a chunk. That's
Gotcha.
what this language says.
Okay, I'm
Your
with you.
proposal of consecutive, that's how we interpret it.
Okay. All right.
All right.
That works for us. Easy
So
peasy.
then we could go ahead and begin to TA on
Yep.
that at this time.
That sounds great. Do you want to start your copy?
Yes, I'll just put TA and today's date and my name.
And then
Who
Jason
else
will,
wants?
and then Kat and I will do ours. With the attendance sheet, I know we don't have maybe a copier, but when you scan it, we'll need to attach the attendance sheets to our TAs. Yes. Oh, and I need to sign the sign-in sheet at some point, whoever has it.
We sign the top and initial all the others.
Yeah. Mhm. So if this is our only copy, we'll scan it and then do you want me to just scan it over to you guys later?
We make copies here.
Oh, okay, perfect, okay. Because what we've done, is we have 2 signers on each and then we've attached the attendance sheet so that we know who was at the table when we signed it. Instead of everybody having to sign, which is horrible. Remember those days, Brian?
I remember.
Yeah, and then you'll pass it over to Brian.
Well, actually, create a nice segue into 6.2.
Okay. Okay. That's good.
I forget the TA, but let's make sure that the blue works out here.
Okay, so we've got 4 signatures on this one. You guys got 4 signatures on that one.
You got
Do you want your paperclip one? Okay. All right.
So as I offered, that was with specificity of Article 12.13. And while we're in the lane of discussing the 30-minute lunches,
Okay.
as I said, it might be a good segue over to Article 6.2.
There's another paperclip for the two. Sorry. All right, so we're looking at teacher 6.
6.2.
Okay.
The 30-minute And that's the reason I said the articles need to be broken apart with specificity, because the 30-minute lunch was already established in the ESP contract. The 30-minute
I got you.
was a proposal offered for Article 6.2.
Okay.
All right, the first thing I wanted to say is, as we talk about Article 6.2, Stephanie,
Mhm.
I think what I would like to offer is we talk about the 30-minute lunch discussion with respect to, it involves teachers, it also involves paras,
Mhm.
and it also involves CDATs. You walked across the CDATs and the para.
Not the lunch, the CDATs had the TA,
All right,
yeah,
so, all right.
because
So
the
those two groups.
CDATs would be just covered under the para contract as a para
Those two.
educator, yeah.
Because the discussion I want to have operationally would be about those two groups and the
Okay.
30-minute lunch. And then I want to work out from there.
Okay.
The first thing I did was, as we reviewed your proposal, begin to look into the data and pull reports with respect to secondary schedules, because we're already established inside of Focus. And it's interesting when I say secondary, I'm talking about middle to high school, middle and high school. And when I looked at a data set of those schools in transparency, of there are 27 of those that have less than 30 minutes. 18 of them are already 30 minutes or more. Okay. I will tell you there's a huge break in the data with respect to a differentiation of 5 minutes.
Okay.
So when you look at a minimum lunch period of being 25 minutes, we end up with 31 of those schools that would be 25 minutes or more.
Okay.
So it's 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And further than I would have 14 that would be below the 25-minute threshold. This is something that we believe is a priority, but it's a larger discussion and it requires lots of evaluation with respect to schedule.
Okay.
So the next piece I want to also flow into it with respect to the elementary schools is the fact that in Focus, if we're discussing how to get an established minimum lunch period, we have to have a way to track that for accountability, to demonstrate to you that it's happening or otherwise. Elementary schools aren't scheduled that way at this time. So that requires time to implement that as well. What we're here saying today is we place value in this discussion, but this is a larger discussion with respect to what I've just offered. Now, the other part of this discussion that I wanted to disclose is we're not saying no to this, but we're putting it off into, we need some more time to review this.
Okay.
The master schedules for our schools are already in place and done. So there's no going back with a ratification saying, oh, this is, can be done by a certain period of time. We need time with respect to those bell schedules and those master schedules that I've spoke about to be reviewed. Further, the discussion of just the 5 minutes or the change in that lunch period impacts the larger discussion of the instructional minutes that we track through what we have to present to the Florida Department of Education. So we have to be very mindful of those. And when we talk about these minutes, it's kind of like we talk about the balloon. You push or you pull and it comes from, if you pull from one direction, it comes out somewhere else. The minutes, there's only so many minutes in a 7 3/4 hour day. There's so many instructional minutes in a day for students and for teachers. So
I have
we have to talk about where that
question with that. So if with instructional minutes, we have to report out to the DOE our instructional minutes, but if schools have 30, schools might have 25, some schools might have 20. I mean, when we report that out to the Department of Education, are we reporting out the 30-minute or because there seems to be a range now? So how does
after the master schedule have been developed that drives.
Because then we would have instructional minutes that are disparate across the district, because if they have lunch schedules that aren't the same, that we would then have to report out for each individual school site. So they would have different instructional minutes depending on the lunch schedule.
And that's where there's detail to that with
Yeah.
the duration of the individual minutes per class, transitions per class. Mr. McNaughton, would you like to add anything to
Right,
that?
and instructional minutes, it's actually set by school, not by district or configuration.
Mhm.
So like if there's a 48, if the school has, and it's only instructional time, it's not school day time.
Yeah.
So that's what they're looking at, student instructional time for the 900 hours. So if the school has 49 minutes compared to 50, you know, so each one is, it's not looking at the rest of the schedule itself.
But I guess my question would be then, if a school has, let's say, a 20-minute lunch, they would then potentially have more instructional minutes than a school with 30-minute lunch.
Transition
would
time
factor
also
into that a lot.
factors into
Okay.
that.
But not, it wouldn't be a significant part with transition time.
If you have a large campus that some of our larger high schools need 8 to 9 minutes in between classes to get there versus at a smaller middle school, you might have someone that uses 3 or 4.
Okay.
And I think to clarify again, the commitment is to sit there for us to join and continue this process. Of reviewing each school on a case by case basis and determining what strategies or steps need to be incorporated as we do master scheduling development for the upcoming school year. I think that would be our concern, is to attempt to do some of this now may be problematic.
So if we're looking at this language, then would we need to, I think what we might propose then is to have this implemented by the 25-26 school year. Then that would give,
I would say have the committee, whoever's meeting on this, come back with a recommendation for the 25-26 school year, because we may have to be pretty creative how we do this.
And I think that's where I would like to be. I wanted to have the discussion at the table today. I didn't have a proposal to bring you with respect to specificity of terms. I wanted to outline my argument with respect to, we need some time, not a hard no. We need some time to build this out. I do think having at least a year to plan and to get in front of the master schedules is key. I also, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I think the concession we could offer, if there's concern about that, is put a deadline, find a mutually agreeable deadline for the committee to bring back a recommendation prior to the end of the school year
Well,
for review and consideration.
I would actually, I think our team, I don't think we need a committee for this. That just adds I mean, the proposal is 30 minutes, and so we need to make that work. And so if it can't, and I hear your concern, I think we hear your concern about the scheduling pieces, teachers come back tomorrow, like we get that part. But like, if we have this now to where this is going to be implemented in the 25-26 school year, we have a year to get ahead of schedules and talk to principals and see how this works, a full school year before, and then we can start with the ground running in the 25-26 school year.
What I would like to do is bring you back another proposal the next time we bargain that would outline looking out into another school year, 25-26, and have a proposal with respect to minute allocations. Because the
Okay.
30-minute, that's why I started with the data piece.
Okay.
I think the 30 minutes is there's a considerable break point I know in the data right now for 25. So obviously I'm going to probably look at 25 to say, 25 seems to be a better place for us than 30 to start with. As we get detailed working with our experts in those areas, we could develop some of those parameters of that proposal and push it back to you.
And so what I think we would request is, it sounds like because the way Focus is set up with secondaries, it's easier to pull that data. Then I would charge the elementary regionals to get data from their schools about what their lunch periods are with the schools they supervise. And then we can look at that data holistically and actually see where we need to have 30 minutes. It's not currently scheduled.
Well, and again, respectfully, I would say it's more than just time, space. Some of these elementary schools are having to run additional sections of lunch within a constrained time period because their cafeteria cannot support the same number of kids on a campus that other larger campuses do. So that's why I'm saying, I do believe there needs to be discussion about this and not just a proposal and an expectation that it happened, because I think we're gonna find there are some isolated instances where we're gonna have to get creative.
Okay.
So that's why I was recommending a committee discussion, because these one-offs, Davenport Elementary is a great example. It is a very tiny elementary school cafeteria. And if they have a large enrollment one year, they could throw the whole thing off, and then we end up negotiating an MOU for teachers having to cover the lunches in their classrooms, which nobody wants to be forced to do. So I think there's opportunities for us to look at those confined spaces with enrollments to make sure that the school's maximizing their master schedule, right? It's not a
Mhm.
convenience issue, but in cases where the number of lunch sections they have to run
Mhm.
is problematic, what other options do we have?
Okay,
So I'd like to at least have that discussion before we bring up final recommendation.
okay,
But I like your idea, the elementaries, we can look at those and evaluate those based off enrollment, square footage of those cafes.
Mhm.
We can do
Yeah.
that pretty good.
and like what their current master schedules look like, because those are set, so if we can start getting that data and looking at that,
Sure.
that would be helpful. Okay, so then the teacher 6-2 and the corresponding para, you guys will
Yeah,
we'll
continue on
further
that.
discussion and then we'll bring that back next time. Okay,
So the next piece would be 6.3.
yes, the TDAs.
The last time we were together. This also walks across
The C for the
teacher
CDAT.
and the CDAT and the para contracts. And it's was a new sub-article 6.3-10 on page 7 and 12. And I'll reorient everybody. Additional planning days during the school year, any teacher covered under the collective bargaining agreement will be given a 7 3/4 hour self-directed planning day per semester during the student day. Then their 196-day contract as a TDA. The teacher and the principal will mutually agree upon the self-directed planning day and account for scheduling substitute coverage if applicable. Self-directed temporary duty day assignment may be remote work day at the discretion of the teacher with the notice given to their principal or supervisor. I wanted to take a moment and unpack this. The first thing I'll start with is the cost. This comes at a cost of almost $2 million to accomplish these 2 days. I also want to discuss the fact that these days would be in addition to days that we already schedule for opportunities for half day, the early release where they can use, and for that matter, some of the whole days that are directed specifically and directly back to, teachers to use for that purpose. I know that as we discuss and look at the TDA option, that we have those early release days that we continue to evaluate and work with through the calendar committee.
Mhm.
I also know there's that section of the contract that outlines what teachers get annually by way of personal and sick. So this would be one of those days in my mind, it's in addition to, and it comes with a cost. So I believe if there's consideration to move forward with this, you need to occur by way of going back to maybe the calendar committee or reviewing with specificity the early release days that we know are there.
Okay.
Are there any options? Is there a way to use them in a way strategically that would be somewhat of a hybrid to accomplish this end as well?
Mhm.
I do want to also talk about inside the system with respect to the language presented offered that this would be by way of a TDA. The TDA machine, if you will, that's built that people use for TDAs right now is set up in such a way that there's no control mechanism to say, okay, you've used your 2 days for TDA for remote work. It's
Okay.
just TDAs. It just continues to come. Furthermore, if you and you end up not using it, there's not a mechanism to back that out or track it or otherwise. That's a whole nother process piece behind the scenes that I want to orient us to make us aware of.
Okay.
Further, the proposal spoke specifically to remote work. I think it said the self-directed temporary duty say may be a remote work day. In our world, when an employee works remote, there's a process and a prescription for how they go about. They have to check in with a supervisor. They have to document the work that's done. All of those elements. I also foresee that there'd be a huge piece behind that process. And my last piece was I was concerned about the language in there. I won't quote it directly, but it's a mutually agreeable piece between you and I, a supervisor and teacher.
Mhm.
I think that could become a problematic piece with respect to, we already have language in the contract that when teachers aren't supposed to be absent following or before holidays and otherwise.
Mhm.
I see this being a situation where those days may come to question or otherwise, and they're not addressed.
Okay.
What I'm saying here is we have a lot of issues and challenges. I think the least obtrusive way to continue the discussion would be by way of, let's go in and look at the early release days and see if there's capacity to use those in another way. In a larger discussion of the annual school calendar and the minutes of instruction in the days,
Mhm.
because at the end of the discussion, you're talking about 2 whole days
Mhm.
that have to come from somewhere.
Mhm.
And so are they gonna come off of an established holiday of fall break or winter break? Are we gonna extend the calendar by a certain number of days? So I think that's a little.
Well, the way the language we presented read is that so a teacher's 196-day contract, that it would be within a already working day of those 196, and it would be a student day. And that's why really the cost would come from the sub,
Mhm.
essentially, with the way the proposal is written on the table right now. What I think I'm hearing you say is that with early dismissal days, we have 10 right now for this school year. And that's the MOU covers the rest of this upcoming school year. And 4 of them are staff development early dismissal days, 6 are teacher planning, self-directed early dismissals. And so what I think I'm hearing you say is that are you bringing something to where we would have those maybe 4 come back to teacher planning instead of staff development?
What I'm saying is, one, to create the dialogue of why we're concerns of the proposal.
Okay.
Inside those concerns, there remains the discussion of the early release, which would
Okay.
be just as we did with the Article 15 and the language we've already
Mhm.
talked about today with respect to the language we just came off of the 3rd minutes. We would go back and review that early release, those days, and the details in the minutes of those and when they fall. Because there's the discussion of the quantity of those days and then the calendar committee with respect to when they fall. Because your language was per semester. So the other discussion is, could we work within 1 per semester, or get that to work in some way in that way? In
Okay.
that regard.
So as the language is currently written, you're rejecting the language it's currently written, and you're wanting to talk through another solution.
We would propose that we review by way of, is there an option by way of the early release? That's a discussion. And that would be the next proposal that would come back, would be.
Okay.
That's the only way outside of the money.
Okay.
The cost of $2 million is huge with
Mm-hmm.
respect to this. The accounting of the TDA piece
Mm-hmm.
is systemically very time intensive. And the audit mechanisms are going to be challenged.
Okay.
And then with respect to the mutually agreeable is a
Mhm.
concern. The discussion of going back and looking at the early release as
Mhm.
discussed removes several of those elements, but provides us a way to maybe create a hybrid to maybe accomplish somewhat of the objective that was proposed.
Okay. So I just want to make sure, because I'm hearing you. I just want to make sure that we're all clear on both sides. You guys are rejecting the TDAs, and we want to find another solution to address the problem.
That is correct.
Okay. Okay.
The interest,
Huh, say that again?
interest. Not the
The-
problem, the interest.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Okay. So do you envision, Brian, us, because I know we're meeting as a calendar committee at the end of August. Do you envision us having that discussion there for this school year? Because I know we have an early dismissal staff development coming up in August. I think toward the end of August, so.
To be direct with you, that's what I had in my notes, was I thought that was a vehicle and a group that could meet to strategically review that would be by way of the calendar committee.
Okay,
Because we have your group in the room, we have teaching and learning in the room, we have Ask Me in the room, we have everybody. And so I think that would be an appropriate place for us to do that.
all right. And then that's for me, just make some notes of it.
Let's see, probably that. That also takes care of 8.3 on our agenda for the No, that was the.
Mm-hmm. 832.
Yeah, that's the one there. So that takes care of 8.3. And then let's look at 8.42 was the 30 consecutive minutes. We'd already discussed that that was tied up in the Article 6.2. So 8.42, we've already discussed in philosophy as well. And I think we're down to 15.22. Article 15.22, the last time we were together.
Wait, we're going to ESP.
Yeah, let me clarify. That's ESP, Article 15.22. In your proposal of June 26, page 5 of
Mhm.
6, you proposed Article 15.22, all is new language. And we've talked about this before. We saw it at the table last cycle.
Mhm.
So we're very well aware of what this is. I won't belabor the point on that. And we know that this language is in the para contract as well. I think to just get to the point, I wanted to discuss with you how the ESP piece is different than a para, which provides a pipeline to teachers. Please excuse me.
Well, we also provide a pipeline through ESPs to teachers with
Let
the
me- let me
greenhouse.
continue. So historically have been the paras, but we know now that the teacher shortage and the crisis we have, we're looking at. So clearly in the language proposed, there's an education degree program lane
Mhm.
that would be for hours courses that would use with specificity leading toward an education certification.
Mhm.
And that's, I clarified this at the table last time,
Mhm.
clearly is a stacking amount
Mhm.
with a value of $2,400 if they come all the way out there.
Mhm.
It would be my assumption
Mhm.
that a person that would have a bachelor's in elementary K6, K5 would want to apply to become a teacher at that kind of time as well over. So I'm just talking through the recurring cost of this. So
Mhm.
in my mind, this would be a person that we're creating a pipeline for them to have remuneration incentive to work to come over to be a teacher, just
Mhm.
as we have done with Paris as
Yeah.
well. I do believe there is a group that is already out there
Mhm.
to which I do not know the exposure, which I'm not sure you know the exposure
We did a survey.
with respect to the hours, the 30, 60, 90 and the bachelor's.
Mhm.
Now, that stacking value it's a total cost if it goes all at the bachelor at $1,400.
Mhm.
I know for a fact, I'd like to marry what I know with your survey. We have over 600 and change ESPs.
Mhm. Like 542.
Yep. So what have you learned from your survey with
Mm.
respect to exposure of this language and potential costs?
Based on proportionality, the surveys, we had about a third of the ESPs respond on the survey that said that they did have some college credit that fell into one of those categories. And so I did survey proportions, how you would normally do that. And I calculated a max exposure about $456,000 if that proportionality from the survey went to, the 542 people, total, and of the that actually had college credit that they wanted to get the supplements for, turned it in to personnel.
Okay.
And then again, to your point, if they're in education, they most likely would not stay in the ESP contract. They would be moving over to the teacher contract at some point and then be paid as a teacher. And I so
You have
that,
another one?
Yep.
Okay. Now, I also wanted to clarify with respect to, I believe it's language at the very bottom of 506. Original transcripts must be submitted to the personnel department for each 30-hour increment completed. Credit for participation will require documentation. So to me, that means that HR, i.e. personnel, is the final determination of what goes toward other degree versus education.
and that's how it currently works with the para contract.
I know it's the same language.
Yeah.
Just wanted to clarify. We have that on the
Yep.
record as well.
And it's important to, we wanted to make sure it mirrored, because within our para educator contract, with your paras that might be ESE paras or Title I paras or ESOL, whichever, they're more the ones that are probably gonna funnel into that education pipeline. But we also have paraeducators that are maybe LPNs that have other college credits. So that's why the other degree related to their job is important, because just like in the para contract where you have positions that aren't going into classroom teachers or other education pipelines, they're going to stay in there. Sign language interpreter, possibly move over into the teacher contract, you know, your OTAs and your PTAs, et cetera, probably aren't going to school to become a teacher. They're going to stay or either develop in their own pipeline, or they might have college credits that way. The same with our secretaries. Not every secretary is going to want to go into an education program, but they probably have some credits that would be job related, but then that would fall to personnel as it does currently for the para contract, for that determination to be made.
So we are, we're open to reviewing this, which is why we're here having the
Mhm.
discussion. I'm not ready to present to you, a TA or otherwise, because my next discussion, now that we've had this discussion at the table, is I would like to go back and have, time and opportunity to further review logistics of implementation.
Mhm.
Because there's a mechanism inside the system with respect to an HR
Yeah.
and how we document and pay and otherwise. I need some time, come back to you the next time, but you know that in philosophy, we are, leaning into how to bring this about.
Okay.
Uh, I'm gonna,
Yep. So let me just make a note on my agenda because I believe we're at the Jason Heather show. Fixing to
unless,
come up.
like, before he starts, I wanted to remind you and I, leaves, stacking leaves.
Oh, thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
let's actually, before we get over to the salary piece,
Yeah.
that we do need to.
Yeah.
So what I did, because really what you guys brought was only a change to the first page of the unpaid leaves. So for my, I saved some, I only printed out the page. Now, if we end up TAing on this, I do have 2 clean sheets with the whole article. So, and again, ESP, para, teacher, it's all the same, but I'll give you all 3. So you have the ESP, this one's the para, and then the teacher. And then there's this, it's teacher Article 21. It is para 11. Let me look.
No, that's not.
It's definitely teacher 21.
Anyway, we got it.
I think
You
split them.
Yeah.
So you got para ESP.
So it's teacher 21, para 7, and then ESP 11. And that's, so the district team brought this and put this on the table on the June 26th date. Our team looked at it and has made some minor adjustments to the proposal that we feel still is within the intent of what you brought, but makes it a little bit clearer. And it mirrors all 3. So I'm just going to read from the teacher 21. Our counter proposal is that should there be any adding in consecutive combination of medical leave to personal or personal to medical leave, striking within a school year or the following school year, because we believe that becomes redundant if you add the word consecutive. And then it's your language that the position would only be held for the initial 12 weeks, which is what we agreed to last year. The employee may not return to work between approved consecutive unpaid leaves. Our team felt that made sense. Why come back to work just to go back out 5 days later? And I think a lot of employees feel like they have to do it that way. Whereas here it's very spelled out that you don't have to do it that way if you're eligible for another unpaid leave. And then, it's always been a practice, and it's actually codified in other places in the unpaid leave that they have 30 days notice to come back so that they have the position. So with our proposed changes, we think that it comes to the intent of what you guys are trying to get a bit clearer.
thank you for the new language. I think we're close. What I'm gonna ask is, I want to have an opportunity to go back and review with Risk and my other
Okay.
folks as well. I don't see any real
Okay.
questions I want to qualify,
Okay,
clarify with, because I think, we're real close on this.
okay,
So, we'll bring this back next time.
okay. All right. Here, let me make a few notes real quick.
I have one more.
Yeah. good.
Okay, this would be on our agenda that you and I spoke about, Stephanie, with salary schedule, student services.
Yes. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Mhm.
Okay. Thank you.
You wanted to flip to your proposal specifically. This was 6/26/24. This was your proposal for student services. I'm specifically wanting to talk about that page.
Okay,
It's page very last page, 3 of 3.
3 of 3.
If I want our. So I'll hand them out. I'll hand them out.
Should be enough for them. Yes.
Okay. Everybody
Mhm.
good? The first thing I wanted to clarify is at the bottom of the page where I believe it was a Scrivener's error.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, we
levels
had
are
discussed
3%
that.
between.
And it's 2%, though, yeah.
And so you can see in the red print there, we had
Mhm.
stricken it, and now we have
Yep.
clarified it's 2% between the levels.
Yep.
That being said, you'll see the red box in the upper corner, upper right corner. You had proposed last time, with respect to the 214 counselors, you'll see the same walk across at $2,500. Paid at a stipend value of 2,500, and you'll notice it's locked in for school year 24-25.
Mm-hmm.
In keeping with what you had proposed, all those that are not counselors, there were 196.
Mm-hmm.
Per your proposal, we could continue to pay them by stipend at the value of $2,500 for 24-25.
Okay.
If that's
Mhm.
where you would direct and where you would elect to have those resources allocated. The next thing would be the school year 25-26. We would need time to build that schedule and work
Mhm.
through how to incorporate that using the dean transition as the model.
Okay.
So for school year 25-26, effective 7/1, I believe it is 25, we could then have a new schedule in place that would include the $2,500 in the salary, like we did with
Mhm.
the deans.
Okay.
Okay.
So for this year, currently, all school counselors get 2,500. What you're bringing, and I do understand the logistics, and we found that out after we did the dean schedule, kind of what a mess that made. So we do completely understand wanting to start, you know, not in the middle of a contract year doing that. So what I'm hearing is that with the other 196 student services people that are not currently getting that supplement, to honor what we had proposed, giving those folks also the additional 2,500 work this year to build that salary schedule with whatever it looks like once we are finished bargaining, adding that $2,500 in for the 25-26. So it's part of their base pay. And then we would then be striking the $2,500 supplement because then it would be built into their base pay.
100%.
Okay,
Sounds cleaner.
Yeah.
just For everybody's understanding, that is much cleaner for tax situations for the employee because stipends versus part of the salary, it just makes a mess with taxes.
Okay.
It's a much cleaner solution.
and so this would then be, once we sign off on the salary part, that would be part of the entire salary package. Okay.
All right, so that brings us down to, and I get it, we'll wait as we work through the salary
Yeah.
pieces, and we'll know that that's a part that's been
Yep.
hanging out there.
Okay.
So now we're down to the very last piece, which is the salary discussion, and before I hand over, Mr. Pitts will be on point. You have no other language, no other items to
Nope.
discuss in that regard
Nope.
to this point, bargaining.
Nope, we are good
All right,
so far.
So Mr. Pitts is gonna bring us an update with respect to, the global proposal of your salary proposal last time. And, give you insight into our proposal and, the
Okay.
values and the priorities there.
One page handout here. Yes, and that's enough.
Before they dig into the numbers, let me go ahead and set the stage.
It's about half.
PEA submission of our proposed salary schedule. Unfortunately, it is beyond our economic. What was proposed made some assumptions, and one of those assumptions was that there would be a referendum that would offset some of that cost. It was close to $50 million in additional revenue that would have to be used. And unfortunately, the board has a policy that our fund balance may not go below 5%. The state has a policy that your fund balance may not go below 3%. The proposed PEA budget recommendations would have taken us well below 3%, close to 2%, which would be financial oversight of the state. So that is not something that we found that was tenable. We don't believe the board would support that or violate their own policy, but we respect the position the PEA was in. We appreciate and respect, the direct nature, and it was a message, we get it. And I would remind everyone that if you haven't watched the last two board meetings, especially the last board meeting, Ms. Fields asked me, and there was board support for me to come forward, provide more information to the board about the various types of referendums that are available to them. We are paying very close attention to Hillsborough County and the situation they find themselves in. I don't know, and I don't think anyone here in this room would doubt that Polk County would probably follow suit with what county commissioners did in Hillsborough County. So that's why our legal counsel is tracking and monitoring that legal dispute at this time, so that I can bring the best possible recommendation to the board. Recommending a referendum, passing a referendum are two very different things. And as you know, it's not something that the board can do. The board cannot go out and publicize and advertise and push for a referendum. They can simply bring it to the voters. And then it's going to take a comprehensive we to bring
yes.
that forward and determine if the board supports a referendum, how we best determine that, or how we will best approach that and ensure that our voters understand the implications for Polk County. There are various types of referendums. There's a traditional millage referendum, which most of you hear about in school districts. There's also referendums that can be done similar to our have-to-be sales tax, and there's referendums that can be passed in conjunction with the county. Several other school districts and counties have that, where the county gets about 60% of the reserve or the funds that generated. School districts getting 40%. There are benefits and advantages to both. Traditional millage typically brings in more revenue, but the time frame is very abbreviated, which means that you have to basically go out for re-adoption every 3 years. But again, the revenue infusion is significant. It will not, most districts do not infuse into their salary schedule, comes in as a supplement, to my understanding, because they can't assure that the referendum be approved every time we bring it before the voters.
Well, and the way I understand it, just to interject here, is that it is part of their base salary, but it's like a separate column because it
With the
counts.
assumption that the
Yeah.
funds are.
So it's part of the salary, schedule that counts towards, retirement, all that stuff. But if it were to not pass, I just know, I'm seeing Miami-Dade schedule in my head, and they have, like, they get from the state, and then they have a second column.
The other type of referendum, like I said, the shared referendum, there are benefits to those as well. And again, I'll present all the information to the board. The shared referendum is typically for capital outlay. However, the statute allows us to run a concurrent referendum where the voters could revert those dollars or approve for us to convert those dollars to operational dollars. So it does not have to be used in capital. The benefits there sometimes is the duration. It lasts for 15 years. So yes, you get less income, yes, you do, but you get a sustainable income over time. And so that's why I'm in a position where I have to bring this information back before the board and hopefully to share that presentation, PEA, and share it with members and other across the industry. So we have a shared commitment. I think we've demonstrated over the last 3 years our commitment to accelerating pay scale issues, payroll issues, as far as it relates to salary. And trying to address salary compression. We did get to 47.5, a good year, maybe a year and a half prior to its requirement, so that we could begin to address compression. So again, having heard PEA in your proposal, we sat down, we reviewed the budget. Initially, there was $12 million allocated for raises. That would have equated to about 2%. We're looking down the road
Yes.
here. The state provides us additional dollars, and the overall allocation from the state of new money to help offset costs and increase teacher salaries did go up. However, 41 million of the 49 million has to go to sustain what's already been infused into the salary schedule. Those are not new dollars. Those are continuing to supplement what we've already addressed. That leaves $7.9 million. So you have 12 million in the district allocation. You have the 7.9 left over in the TISA dollars. It's actually 6.3, JD, if I'm right, 6.4, once we pull out charter school allocation, because they get a portion.
6.6.
6.6, thank you.
I'm so glad your number matched mine, because I had 6.62.
All right, so that puts us just under 20 million. And again, that would not have reached a level or a percentage that I felt comfortable with. So we did meet, the team was challenged, come up with another number. And they'll present that to you here. It is arguably, from our position, it is the highest we've ever offered, ever in the history of Polk County Public Schools. I think it demonstrates our sincere commitment. I don't know that we're done. There are, in full transparency, we allocated ESSER dollars to our charter schools, and whatever is unspent by them reverts back to the school district. So just so everybody in the room is aware, so everybody who's listening is aware, the reason why we have a healthy fund balance is we used our ESSER dollars very effectively. We did not hire staff, which was subsequently then have to be cut when the grant fundings expired. We also did not overextend ourselves and purchase additional contracted services that we knew that we couldn't bring back in-house. But what we did do is we offset a lot of our traditional operating costs, like substitute costs, and $7 to $12 million a year. So that has helped us build a healthier fund balance, just over 7% at this point. So I think we're in a good place, but depending on what happens with those ESSER dollars, depending on what happens with some other things, those ESSER dollars essentially sunset at the end of August, but we don't get a final true up from the charter schools until October. So we continue to scour the budget to try and find additional revenue to bring to the table so we can maintain that 5% reserve fund balance, but offer the highest possible employment compensation rate in our district's history. So I am pleased with the work that's been done. We are much closer. I think your ask total was about 49 million.
42.7, I think.
I think 49 with everything else with all the other add-ons, I think when we got to that, so, but that's okay.
Okay.
Regardless, we're more than halfway. I feel more than halfway. So I'll let Jason and Heather explain it from there. The only thing I would offer, just keep an open mind, because we did not have the time to. So the percentage and the dollars that are being allocated have not been delineated to address compression. It's just an equitable distribution across the table. So knowing that we want to address compression, I think we then, if we come to some agreement, work from that number to address compression, meaning you might put less of a percentage, less of a raise into years 1 through 3, and then I don't know how you do the breakdown. But I just want to set the stage for that, because I don't want anybody leaving here saying, we're not addressing compression again. No, we couldn't. We didn't have the timeline in which to do that. Because we were only able to secure funds after the budget roll and some other things. So I think we're in a good place. So I just want to set the stage for that, so that there's no misunderstandings here. Okay, go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Superintendent Hyde. You did such a great job in your overview. You also took care of most of the details of my presentation. So this will be a little quicker.
All right. You tend not to want to be long-winded,
Yeah,
Jason.
I try not to be. So in front of you is a one-page budget projection, which is the layout that we would give to the board.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a very high level overview of how we generally assign revenue and dollars to calculate, which the end goal is to make sure we have a minimum fund balance that meets our board policy. So this spreadsheet starts out on the left side in green. You'll see $4 amounts there.
Mhm.
The first three are ending fund balance from the year that we're just closing out of.
Okay.
So you'll see the 1,158,895,066 was our 23-24 budgeted revenue.
Mhm.
New revenue we'll see this year is $69,902,624.
Okay.
Of that 69 million, about 11.3 million gets taken off the top for their charter school allocation. That leaves us in general fund about $58.6 million dollars in new revenue. For a new revenue budget, including fund balance of $1,352,812,826.
Mhm.
That'll be our new revenue budget for our general fund. Now, some of the new items that we'll see for cost this year, Mr. Hyde already alluded to, and which you already have the dollar amount of the teacher salary increase allocation of $6,620,361.92. We're estimating $3.6 million for our district level reorg and staffing. Operational costs, this is across the entire all of our departments. There's about $3 million in additional operating costs this year. Property insurance, we did have some increases there, but we were able to take that down to zero for the general fund this year. Categorical costs, increased costs such as instruction materials is about $4 million. Now, Mr. Hyde, and I'll come back to this dollar amount here, but potential 23, well, that should be really, I should have changed that to 24, 25. Staff salary increases. $19,379,638. There's about $32.4 million that we had to move in the general fund that had been covered under ESSER. And it's a list of several items that total that 33 million. So that's approximately $69,074,603 in new items and new expense items for the 24-25 budget. So if you add that 69 million to last year's budgeted expense. We get a new 24-25 expense budget in the general fund of $1,264,946,398. Estimating our ending fund balance. And then we have to break that down in a couple different categories. And it's our, what's called assigned, unassigned ending fund balance, that we calculate that percentage off of. With all those items in there, we've met the board policy of 5% exactly.
Okay.
So that's the 19.3 million for 24-25 staff increases. But in addition to that, for teachers is that 6.6.
So the 19.3 includes the
No,
6.6
it
or does
does
not? Okay.
So in total, it's right on $26 million.
There's- there.
Okay, and then I've got another handout that's gonna
Okay.
talk more about that. Any questions on that? I went over it kind of quick, but.
No, I don't have any questions. You don't have any questions on the map?
Okay, now, one more handout.
Oh, sorry. I'm holding on to that.
I do want to say we are, we are getting close to being a $2.5 billion company. But it's this general fund, that's our general operating dollars that we focus on. The other pots of money are just not generally available for raises and that sort of thing. So the second page that I have passed out further breaks down this $19.3 million into three groups. And this is based off the number of that we have. These are based off actual employees. So you'll see on the right-hand side, that's 11,879. Of that 11,879, 8,341 are in the PEA union group. 1,541 are in the AFSCME union group. And 1,997 are in the non-union or the NUG group. And what we've done is allocated based on the percentage of, the number of employees in each of those three groups, that $19.3 million that was referred to earlier as being available for staff increases. So that would give PEA portion $13.6 million. That gives ASME $2.5 million. I'm rounding. And that gives the non-union group $3.2 million for a total of $19.3 million. That does represent a 4% across the board raise for all employees, which I have been at the district. My first year was in 2009. And since I've been here, there's never been a 4% increase.
Not across the board.
Not across the board.
We are waiting on clarification. I do need to add this on the NUG group. NUG group is not just administration and department staff. We're waiting on a legal. Not a ruling, we're waiting on some legal guidance. Because one of our collective bargaining agreements, one of our collective bargaining units no longer encompasses all of the groups that they did previously. And as a result, we don't know if they default to none. Regardless, it would just change the percentage allocated to those type of employees. It would not change anything that's on the sheet. The none group would just have to be spread.
I want to clarify, that's none of the PEA
No,
covered in.
I said one of our collective no longer represents their previous membership. Yeah, yes, you're correct. But I just, for transparency purposes, I don't want anybody misrepresenting, because none, I think, is typically been referred to as the admin group in district office. That's no longer going to be the case.
so for PEA, if you add to that 13.6 million, the TSIA dollars of 6.6, that would be $20.2 million available to PEA.
All right,
That is my
And it's
big,
again with the understanding that we fully expect there to be a dialogue about how you want to distribute those dollars across your class, years of service, designations, your best impression.
Mhm.
Know that that's probably of interest, so.
Clarifying question, on the first sheet real quick. So about what are, and I know there's still some shore up to do, but with the 23-24 fiscal year closing out, what is the projected fund balance? Because, and I'll clarify this, the intent of the question is because you have it, with everything happening here, having the fund balance at 5%, I'm wanting to see what the difference is of where we're landing versus with what Jason went through here. We're ending at 5, about where are we landing?
It's between 7 and 8 right now.
Okay, and that's the unassigned or the total.
It's the assigned / unassigned.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The only other thing I can contribute to this is depending on timeline in which this topic moves.
Mhm.
I can't make a best guess because charter schools are going to try and spend down their money as fast as they can on the ESSER distribution. However, of the original 50 million, we anticipate seeing some,
Okay,
probably about a fifth, probably about 10 million or less, depending on the speed in which they try to spend down.
what's their deadline to return back to the district? October? you said?
August 30th, I thought was the deadline, but October is the expenditure timeline.
Their final reporting is on, I think it's October 24th.
Yeah, they usually like.
Now. Before I say that, can we caucus for a minute? I don't want to say something and then you guys throw stuff at me then. Can we caucus for a minute?
Yeah.
Okay, caucus.
I will ask, while you're caucusing, can you guys talk about the teacher Article 15? And maybe we can circle back to that, because you guys haven't had a chance to caucus on that either, the evaluation stuff. Okay. All right, so we will take a short caucus. So we will be going off live stream for probably 15-20 minutes. And then we'll come back on for those that are on the YouTube.
Yeah.
So we are returning back. Caucus. And so our team had just a few questions as we were going through, to just clarify on the green and yellow spreadsheet. So in the middle part, when we're going down to the district level reorg, you have the 33.6 mil and then you have the 5.5. What's the difference? Because it looks like there might have been a column
Yeah, you,
off.
you can just regard those numbers on the right hand side over there.
So we can ignore the ones on the right?
And that's stuff that we were
Okay,
plugging in, leaving off to the side to check to see. if-
I gotcha. Okay,
And I thought I had.
okay,
before I make
We
copies,
cut
I
it
thought-
back.
gotcha.
That's what it started as.
Okay, all right. So I just wanted to make sure that we were, because
You can-
we were kind of confused about that.
Yeah, disregard those.
Okay, and then, so, and then just on the middle part too, and I know that this is bargainable with, us and AFSMI together. So we are the new board revenue of 100 per month, and I know there's no money there. But that's not currently calculated into any of this.
Right, because
Okay.
we did not need to add any
Perfect.
addition, and I forgot to mention.
Okay,
that,
thank
know,
you.
That's one of the things that helped
Yeah.
this year is that we did not have to put
Okay.
any additional dollars into the health fund.
Perfect. And that's what I thought, because we were looking really good in the end of the year wrap up in March. And so we wanted to clarify that. And then dropout prevention teachers are also crossed through.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no dollar.
Okay.
amount.
And I know we usually request it like the second week of August. When are the budget spreadsheets ready? For us, because I usually disaggregate that. What you send to the state, like the ESC.
CEC.
Yeah, all three of those. When are those gonna be ready?
So those are the AFR. And
Okay,
September 3rd is.
Is the
due
budget
date for
meeting.
those.
so when do you think, and I haven't put in the formal request yet for those.
Until at least a week before.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll go ahead and put that request in just so it's on your desk. So when you do have it finalized, we can get that too. Okay.
The state actually just sent the forms today.
Oh, that's nice of them to give you a month to fill everything. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and put that in so that we have that and then we'll be on the lookout for that.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you for this information. We'll be able to take this back and I know we'll be looking for the AFR stuff too to come out. Were you guys able to talk about the
I
evaluation?
have 2 items to discuss with you.
Okay,
Yeah, so was that, yeah.
All right, while you're clarifying numbers on the sheet. One of the things we want to prioritize is that they're wanting to expedite as fast as we can.
Mhm.
But we also know that there's some of the elements that are a hanging chad for us.
yeah,
And one of those that you heard us speak to was with respect to the charter money. from
yes,
ESSER, that we
Mhm.
anticipate will coming back in. That's unspent, it's encumbered, but it might not be spent. Not knowing what that amount will be, it's a moving target,
mhm,
so we don't want that, and we heard that was gonna be late October,
yeah,
likely, late October into early November. We wouldn't wanna hold up our work here
Yeah.
for that.
we agree.
So our discussion was, should there be monies to be discussed in that regard? We would come back by way of an MOU at a later point in time. To discuss some sort of way, an ESSER bonus or some. We can work out the logistics and terminology and how that would work in the terms of who that would be applicable to. At that point, with the thought that would be given to employees sometime in the second semester likely.
Okay,
So that's where we were on that. So we were open about that, but we didn't want that to be something we put in a line item and held up the works because it's an unknown.
Okay.
All right. The next thing is Article 15, which you had requested us to review while we were out. And we did review.
Thank you.
But I have 2 things, I guess, to say about that. I'm most comfortable with the original TAC language today. If you want to TA based on the TAC language.
Mhm.
if you wish to consider the proposal of what you put forward to us today, I'm gonna leave that just on the table because I need to go back and shopsmith that some more.
Okay,
There are, I will use the words like legal and intricate details, I gotta make sure that we're covered.
okay,
For example, the 90, are you in a position 90+ days? Because this plan has to be codified with the FDOE when we put it forward.
mhm,
And I want to make sure that what we're doing at the table doesn't put us in a place where we're not congruent with what the state would approve. For example, feasibly, you're talking about someone being in a position for 3 terms and then in another position last term, you're effective based on the last term, and you're not, haven't been in that position in an appropriate period of time. So those are some of the details I want to press out.
Okay.
Which I felt are part of kind of what your proposal lead to. Your
Mhm.
several things in that proposal that we need to review closely. That wasn't in the TAC proposal, if you will.
okay,
I respect spirit and
yeah,
what we're trying to get at that TAC did, but that's where I'm at. If you want to go to the TAC language, we're good to TA on that. However, if we're gonna push forward on this, the proposal you push forward, we'll review that and bring it back account at a later point in time.
let's, because I would be curious to see how that would line up, and then, I don't know if we'd necessarily be opposed to defaulting to what TAC recommended, but I think we would be, can we look into what we proposed today
So
would
just
look
leave
like?
it on the table.
Okay,
And then I will look into, so I'm gonna take the language you gave me, still look
Okay.
into what I have said.
okay,
And
perfect,
then we have 2 options next time we come together. It'll be the
All right.
language that I will counter with, or it will be existing TA.
okay,
All right.
all right,
Yeah.
that sounds good. Well, I think we have touched on everything on the agenda for
Yes.
today.
Yes.
All right, do we want to look at calendars for
We should roll it
next?
together.
Yeah, and I know that they're crazy town. So we'll probably want to look at after the first week of school, at least. And I know that once we're back in school, it's the request of our team, knowing that a majority of, other than me and Kat and my staff, they're in schools, at work sites. And, we would like to meet more in the evening so that we are not pulling 20 people out of classrooms and work sites. And, I know logistics, you guys will need to work that out with your staff and your team on your end. But we would like to start and maybe look at like 5 to 8 if we're coming back, so that we can not pull people out of schools.
I'm gonna be direct in the fact that we've heard your request.
Yeah.
I'm not committing to that because we have priorities and schedules as well.
Mhm.
And so, we'll take it back and discuss it.
Okay.
But I'm not agreeing to that at the
Yeah,
table.
but we can look at let's look at dates, but I did want to put that out there that we are, since we're all gonna be back at work. Okay. So. Gotcha. Um. What are we talking about? So I was looking at maybe the week of the 19th. That gives us a full week back. Maybe Thursday, the 22nd.
Directly, then
I don't
I'm only
know.
available the 19th. I've got to get my daughter to Syracuse that week.
Well, I think I could also do the 19th. So let's maybe block off the 19th and we'll look at times and we can talk through what time blocks would be best, but we can look at the 19th. And then the rest of the week you're okay.
Brian, you're out the whole rest of the week?
I'm out the 20th through the 23rd. Syracuse University.
You attending?
His daughter is.
Spending money putting a freshman in
His money. His money going,
I have one.
And then maybe the week of the 26th.
It's a great school, by the way.
That's what I said. Enjoy the snow.
That's right before Labor Day.
But still.
We can, so the 30th is an early dismissal day
26th.
on the Friday, which if we were to pull people
What
to
day?
the 30th of August, that's an early dismissal day. And so that would be within the workday, but it would be not as burdensome on schools to,
I'm good
Full.
for the 19th or the 30th.
we can maybe block both days and then go from there,
Well,
or,
we move fast. My calendar fills up quick,
Yeah.
otherwise I won't present you. But I'll do the best I can.
We make-
19th and 30th right now looks good for me.
all right, so let's block the 19th and the 30th, and then we can talk more details about time blocks.
That's 2 days. We'll get one of those.
They
for
already
the
said-
table.
Okay, perfect.
That means we'll be at the table for September.
Yep. Yep. And that'll also give us some time, to look at this and maybe even get preliminary AFR numbers too, so that we
The
can
first one
better
almost
come
always
back
is.
and, okay, all right, that works. So we'll block off the 19th and the 30th, and then we'll talk more about timeframes. Okay, yeah, we're gonna block both days, and then
Teachers on the day when they have.
I know schedules start to fill up.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, please,
So
actually.
there'll be a memo that goes out tomorrow, hopefully no later than midday. That's the final vetting right now. So on Tuesday, we had the opportunity to present at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Commission meeting. The benefit of us being there, number one, we represented large urban districts, but we got to get clarification. So since it's a new school safety bill, there are a lot of questions that have gone unanswered. In fact, every time we've asked for clarification, we've been told, consult your legal counsel. Well, that creates way too much problems, too many problems across the state.
You got 67 of you.
Explicit and others. So Mark, what happened on Tuesday, we were thrilled with, because Sheriff Judd was there, he helped us with this conversation as well, was school campuses and locked doors. So long as a perimeter of a school is secured, has a gate, and the gates are all locked and the front doors are locked. Classroom doors must remain locked at all times when students are present. No exceptions. Cannot prop a door open. Statute is explicit. We will be adopting a policy in partnership. We'll vet that with you all and asking with others, because any employee who intentionally or unintentionally leaves the door open has to be disciplined in accordance with the statute. Obviously, if we progressive discipline, they'll follow here what we presently have, but that is a requirement, not an expectation, it's a requirement. However, buildings do not have to be locked, so long as the perimeters are locked and classroom doors are locked. So we're not going to be issuing additional keys to everybody. There's no need to do that. There'll be a clarification that goes out tomorrow morning, so everybody understands this. There are some exceptions, and I try to clarify those. For example, the cafeteria doesn't have to be locked during the day when we're feeding students. But if the cafeteria becomes a classroom at any time, then it must be locked. If the media center becomes a classroom at any time, it must be locked. So if students go to the library to check out books, it doesn't have to be locked, but if the media specialist is delivering a lesson, the door must be locked. So there are some things that we have to help clarify for individuals. But the only other outstanding concern is, and Brandon and I were talking about this, excuse me, so let me go back to the locked doors. After school activities, if you're in a classroom, we're telling you, do not lock the door if it's just you and a student, a single student. Make sure there's another adult, or go to a common space so that there can never be an accusation and there can't be any leakage. Technically common sense, but we need to clarify that sometimes. Extracurricular activities. Right now, it's status quo, what we've always done. The commission was also very receptive. They're going to work with FADS, work with New Florida School Safety Specialists organization was established called FS3. So they called me on Wednesday morning, excited about some of the things we shared, and said, we will work with you on a handbook and scenario-based trainings so that you can create exemptions for these types of things. And I'll give you an example, football. I hate to use football because we always use soccer, shoe soccer. Right now, the law says I have to lock the gates. But if you're outside and you have an emergency, our only process is run, hide, fight. You can't, there's no place to, basically, there's no safe corners on a field. And so locking the gates puts more staff and students at risk. So the commission agreed and understood and heard that. So that's why there's a willingness to work with us. So there'll be some clarification that goes out tomorrow, but as these progresses, additional clarification will come out. But you're not going to be expected to carry around extra keys. I don't want you to have extra keys. Because if somebody leaves the school, we don't get the key back, now I gotta rekey the whole building, and that's hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we just can't operate that way. So we are looking like other districts. Two other things, there'll be some clarification on Raptor. All of our district issued devices have Raptor. Ms. Pasco and her team are currently looking, there's no promises. But we expect everybody to be logged in. Because it's too late after an event happens for you to log in an emergency. You're gonna already be worried about yourself and your students and taking action. We don't need you having to struggle with the device. What Ms. Pasco and her team are evaluating is, can we do it through single sign-on? So when you log into your device in the morning, I'll open up Raptor. I'm most concerned about you getting the alert that comes through Raptor, since a few of our staff want to put it on their phones.
Mhm.
Additionally, Ms. Pasco and her team have been vetting the lanyard. Raptor does not have a lanyard. They don't intend on developing a lanyard, but there is a third-party company that might have the ability to connect with that. We're exploring that, but that's down the road. We do outline our additional enhancements that we've been doing. Vape detectors are being evaluated right now because we did receive the Juul settlement. So all this kind of goes together comprehensively of how we secure our campuses. But I wanted everybody to kind of relay some of the concerns, because we've had. Schools will have to submit exemptions for doors that are left unlocked. But no exterior gates can be left unlocked. Pre-planning gets a little complicated, and I'm gonna try and spell this out. It's more complicated at high school than it is anywhere else. Why? High schools have athletics going on right now, and they have band camps and other things going on right now. It's common practice during pre-planning for us to leave gates and side doors open to allow people to move back and forth. Can't happen right now, not while kids are on campus. So we're gonna try and problem solve this the best we can, but this is an expectation. And if the state shows up and audits the school, it's gonna be a problem. So
And during transition time, doors are allowed to be propped open if an adult is there during
as long as
transition
there's an
time.
adult actively monitoring that door.
Okay.
Yes. But please, we're gonna reiterate this to our subs. Don't prop doors open with trash cans because your kids are coming and going from the bathroom, none of those things. I'm telling you, the one day that you do that will be the day that if somebody from the DOE comes in and audits the school. And we do not want to be above the fold on that issue. We are a very conscientious district. We got a great sheriff. I don't want us drawing unnecessary attention, and we do a great job of ensuring the safety of our kids. So I know that people are watching on the owl, so gave me a chance to kind of put that out there. I'll send you a draft this evening,
Thank
share it
you.
with your team.
Okay.
But it'd be intent for it to go out tomorrow morning.
Perfect. All right.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Before you decide dates, August 30th is a staff development early release.
Mhm.
So that would be a day you would be pulling people out of staff development.
Is there a district-wide staff development planned for the 30th? Or is it school-based? Okay.
Just know that.
Okay. It'd be one, we don't have anybody that replicates, so it'd be 20 people, one person.
Just bring it
If
to
we
just bring
decided
it to
to.
the attention of the planning group.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
All right.
Welcome.
I think we're ready to go off record for today. Thank you guys so much. And we are looking at the 19th or the 30th, and we will let our folks know if it's both days or one of those days and what time we're meeting. Thank you, guys.